I'm Russ Rapp, and this is my YouTube channel about non-duality. It's Friday night, so what should we talk about? How about The Matrix? The Matrix trilogy, to be exact. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movies, feel free to turn this off or just keep watching. They're still good movies. So what about The Matrix? Well, it's 3 movies, and there's totally a reason for that, for it being a trilogy. Although apparently they were in the process of filming another movie, so I'm interested to see how that's gonna go. I hope they don't ruin it. But so the trilogy, I think most people fell in love with the first movie. I watched it and thought it was a little bit derivative. At the time, no, I didn't get into it right away, but I later on I got into kind of some of the philosophy of it, and so it kind of got me hooked. And I think the second movie was pretty big, people kind of like that, and then the third movie, Matrix Revolutions, people didn't like it as much. And I think there's some valid critique you can make of that movie, but overall, in my opinion, it was written as a trilogy. There's a reason why the third movie happened as the way it did. And I think part of the issue is that people don't really understand what the outcome of the third movie was all about. And so, it's easy to have a hero and to have a villain, and to, like in the first movie, he defeated Agent Smith, and everything seemed to kind of go back to normal. It was kind of a cliffhanger, but he prevailed, and so that was a pretty clear idea as far as a storyline of a hero, villain, and the hero winning at the end of the day. In the third movie, he essentially sacrificed himself and died, if you want to call it that. Which ended up destroying all the Agent Smiths. But the whole idea, and if you've watched the philosophy, the video of the Matrix and philosophy that they had, I think on the box set, which I got, which I used to watch all the time. Ken Wilber talks about the Matrix and the real world and the machine world being a sort of a trinity, where the real world represented the body, and the Matrix was the mind, and the robots, or the machine world was kind of represented spirit. So body, mind, and spirit. So spoiler alert, that's kind of what that's about. So there was never a moment when the Matrix was going to be destroyed, because I think the scene where he was talking to, and it's been a while since I've seen the movies, the Chancellor guy, when they're looking at the machine city in the real world and how the machines were powering everything, and the guy was like, "Hey Neo, what if these machines got out of hand?" He's like, we can destroy them. He's like, "Oh, very very astute of you, Neo. We can destroy them totally, but then we all die." So it's just kind of this mutual interdependence. And so that's where, between the Matrix and the real world, the machines, it's all kind of an interwoven reality that is all connected. That's where in the real world, Neo could interact with the machines because he felt them, is how they described it. And so that's really essentially what a big part of what the Matrix was about. I'm not doing this justice, but this is kind of off the top of my head. But I think to pull this into non-duality, because I think the Matrix it used a lot of kind of integral theory interwoven, but I think non-duality was essentially the overall theme of the trilogy, where Neo considered himself separate, fighting, battling Agent Smith. How do you know your enemy? How do you know the other? Is through fighting them. So you create the enemy through this kind of back and forth tension. So it talks about separation, but ultimately Neo realized that he was part of creating the separation, and so through his sacrifice at the end of the movie, by letting himself be taken over by Agent Smith, he finally realized that the only way to neutralize the polarity was through sacrifice. And how that relates specific to non-duality in this respect that the Matrix, even after the first movie, Neo they had to continue to jack back in to try to free people into the real world. And I think that's where non-duality is, talking about non-duality is really kind of jacking into the Matrix, or it's a way to communicate these ideas that really you can't form into words, you can't really explain, and so you have to jack into the Matrix. You have to meet people where they are and try to explain non-duality in terms that point in the direction, because people see things in the 3D reality. They see things as the real world. The ego, the separate self, see things in the way of illusion, if you want to call it that. And so talking about non-duality is jacking into human communication through language to try to explain the unexplainable. So looking forward to the new Matrix. I don't know if they're probably on hold filming it with this whole coronavirus situation, so we'll see where that leads. But until then, if you haven't seen The Matrix in a long time, or you've never seen it all, go check it out. So I appreciate your comments. Tell me what you think, if you think I'm wrong in my theory, because a lot of people like talking about The Matrix. So until next time, peace.